Finishing moves are unlike many other abilities in the game since they require combo points to perform in addition to other resources. The first ability is Eviscerate. Its description in vanilla is, finish a move that causes damage per combo point, increased by attack power. Eviscerate is a basic assassination rogue ability, and even in vanilla, rogues started out at level 1 with this ability. The ability was as basic gets. You spend combo points to deal pure physical damage with no other fanfare. Up until patch 1.12 of vanilla, Eviscerate did static damage, which means it didn't actually scale with anything. So having a good weapon or more attack power didn't matter. And because it worked this way, rogues could make PvP videos where they would literally have a naked rogue with no gear and only a starting zone dagger, and win duels against fully geared other players at max level. Which was only really possible specifically because Eviscerate did not scale with anything, until it did in patch 1.12. So classic WoW players never got to have fun with its old school jank. Eviscerate then basically had no changes until the Cataclysm expansion, when it was automatically learned at level 3 instead of level 1. Eviscerate's next big change came in Legion when it was removed from the Assassination spec and made only available to the Subtlety spec as a tier 1 talent option. As you can imagine, many were not happy with this change, and Blizzard finally relented, with patch 7.1 seeing the return of Eviscerate as a baseline ability, now available to both the Assassination and Subtlety specs. Legion also saw the abilities tooltip change to finish a move that disembowels the target, causing damage per combo point, which is a nice touch. Shadowlands had 3 changes to Eviscerate, the biggest of which was that all 3 specs now had Eviscerate as a baseline ability again. Finally, Eviscerate was also given a second rank. In both Shadowlands and Dragonflight, Eviscerate was learned at level 3, and by level 10 it could be replaced by other abilities, depending on the spec. But don't worry, as we'll be going over the other finishing moves that can replace Eviscerate later on in the video. And now we turn to the next Assassination Rogue finishing move from vanilla, named Slice and Dice. This ability, when used, increases the rogue's melee attack speed by 20%. There's also a second talent which increases speed to 30%. In vanilla, with 5 combo points, the duration of this speed buff extended to 21 seconds. Slice and Dice could be learned from rogue trainers at level 10 for 3 silver. Slice and Dice's first change came in Wrath, when the speed buff was increased to 40%. Mists of Pandaria saw another buff to Slice and Dice when its duration was extended to 36 seconds at 5 combo points, making it a lot easier to keep up in long raid fights. It was also now automatically learned at level 9, like a lot of baseline abilities. Slice and Dice saw some major changes in Legion. First, it was moved to the Outlaw only tier 7 level 100 talent. This same tier also had another finishing move called Death from Above, which we'll discuss later on in the video. But for right now, it's important to know that these abilities in Legion were mutually exclusive. Slice and Dice's second change was a big buff to its attack speed increased to 100%, and in 7.2.5, this was increased to an insane 125%. Legion also introduced the Deeper Stratagem passive ability, which increases the rogue's combo points to 6, which in turn extended the Slice and Dice attack speed buff to 42 seconds. Basically, the reason this was removed from the baseline rogue was because Blizzard wanted to shift away from classes having to maintain short duration buffs as part of their rotation. But with Outlaw rogues, they specifically wanted them to have this as part of their spec, so they had the option to replace Roll the Bones with Slice and Dice, if they didn't like the gambling minigame. BFA severely nerfed Slice and Dice, with the attack speed bonus reduced all the way down to 50%. BFA also changed it to a level 90 talent. In Shadowlands, Slice and Dice was re-added back to all specs, becoming a baseline ability once again. In both Shadowlands and Dragonflight, Slice and Dice is learned at level 12. The next finishing move is Rupture. This dot ability has been in the game since vanilla when it was a rogue assassination ability. Its tooltip description for vanilla is a finishing move that causes damage over time, increased by your attack power. Lasts longer per combo point, which basically meant it did the same damage no matter how many combo points were used, and only had a longer duration for more combo points, being one of the few damage finishers that was actually usable at only 1 combo point. Rupture could be learned at level 20 and had 6 rings in vanilla. An interesting thing to note about Rupture is that flavor-wise it was supposed to be a bleed, so a lot of mobs and bosses that aren't supposed to bleed were immune to the ability, like undeads, elementals, and mechanical creatures until patch 2.4. Rupture saw its first change in Wrath when the damage over time ticks were allowed to produce critical strikes along with a lot of other dots in the game. In Worlds of Draenor, the ability was removed from combat rogues. Legion continued this trend, removing Rupture from subtlety rogues as well, and tried to give assassination rogues a bleeding theme, and obviously wanted them to be the Rupture users now, as they were trying to make all the different specs have their own finishers and not just share all of them. Rupture got a huge damage increase by over 300% in Legion, as well as getting a new description which now said, finish a move that tears open the target, dealing bleed damage over time. This ability was so overpowered in Legion that Blizzard had to nerf it in patch 7.1.5, so the combo points were made to once again only extend the duration and not the actual damage of the ability. Shadowlands brought back the Rupture to where the ability lay spec-wise in Worlds of Draenor, with Subtlety Rogues once again being able to use the ability. The level to learn Rupture was changed many times. In Worlds of Draenor it was level 46, in Legion BFA it was level 20, and in Shadowlands and Dragonflight it's now level 17. The Kidney Shot ability is one of the most iconic and infamous of the Rogue's finishing moves. This ability just stuns the target, with the stun being longer the more combo points are spent. In Vanilla, Kidney Shot was available to Assassination Rogues at level 30 for 1 gold. Rank 2 of Kidney Shot extended the stun by 1 point for each combo point. The longest the stun can last is 6 seconds, which can be very, very annoying for enemy players in PvP situations. Until Wrath, the diminishing returns on the stun didn't share with a lot of other types of stuns, so it was possible to stun someone for 10 seconds in PvP with Cheap Shot into a Kidney Shot, one of the most common combos in early WoW. This ability has seen little changes over the years, and in fact, its description has remained unchanged since Vanilla. In Legion, it was removed from Outlaw Rogues and replaced with a ranged version of it called Between the Eyes. However, Shadowlands once again returned the Kidney Shot finishing move to all of the rogue specs. In Legion, Kidney Shot did not become available until level 40, but this was changed in Shadowlands when it was brought down to level 13. It is still learned at level 13 as of Dragonflight. And in Dragonflight patch 10.1, the duration was decreased by 1 second per combo point in PvP. We now move on to Deadly Throw, which was added in the Burning Crusade with a description that reads, a finishing move that reduces the target movement speed by 50% for 6 seconds, and causes increased thrown weapon damage. In the Burning Crusade, Deadly Throw could be learned at level 64 for 7 gold. This was one of the few ranged abilities a rogue had, so it basically existed as a way to slow a fleeing enemy target so that you can get back into range. Although since it required combo points to use, it wasn't the best at this. Additionally, the PvP gloves in the TBC expansion would grant this ability the ability to interrupt as well, which was removed in Wrath of the Lich King, in which they also added a talent called Throw and Weapon Specialization in Wrath, which just gave it back its ability to interrupt. The ability remained pretty much the same until a major talent overhaul in Mists of Pandaria. The Throw and Weapon part of the ability was removed entirely, and Deadly Throw was made into a tier 2 talent for assassination specs. Additionally, in Mists of Pandaria, it was made so that Deadly Throw also interrupted the target if the rogue had 5 combo points, as kind of a nerf to its previous version that could interrupt for only 1 combo point. Worlds of Draenor saw a buff to Deadly Throw when the slow effect on the target was increased to 70%. However, to compensate for this, Blizz also removed the interrupt. Sadly, Deadly Throw was removed from the game in the Legion expansion. I suppose you could say it was thrown aside for dead. The second rogue finishing move added to the Burning Crusade is named Envenom, and its description says, finishing move that consumes your deadly poison doses on the target and deals instant poison damage. 1 dose is consumed for each combo point. Envenom was a great finisher because it was one of the first that did magic damage, so it actually bypassed armor, something rogues at the time sorely lacked. However, it required you to build up combo points and stacks of deadly poison on the target, so it wasn't as easy to use as just Eviscerate, the other pure damage finisher that didn't require setup. In Wrath, the combo points were changed to durations of seconds in which the ability gave the rogue an increased chance to apply instant poison instead of consuming stacks of poison on the target, since they kind of changed how poisons worked too, so you couldn't actually do that anymore, making the ability a lot stronger in the process. The Mists of Pandaria talent rework saw a big change when the Envenom ability replaced the Evisceration ability for the assassination spec. Warlords of Draenor saw 2 buffs to Envenom with another increase in its damage, this time by 30%, as well as a chance to poison the enemy being increased. Legion saw a slight nerf to Envenom when its damage output was reduced by 15%. Legion also updated the description of the ability to finish a move that drives your poison blades in deep, dealing instant nature damage and increasing your poison application chance by 30%. Damage and duration increased per combo point. In Shadowlands, this was changed to be learned at level 22, and in Dragonflight, the ability is also still learned at level 22, so not much has changed. Now we move on to the rogue finishing move added in Cataclysm. This ability was called Recuperate, and it's notable for being the first healing class ability available to rogues. It works similar to a Druid's Rejuvenation in that it's a heal over time mechanic. Its description is, finish a move that consumes combo points on any nearby target to restore 3% of maximum health every 3 seconds. The ability healed 6 seconds more for each combo point, so the maximum duration could be 30 seconds. As far as the history of this ability, there is very little. In Cataclysm, the ability was learned at level 12, but in MoP this was raised to level 16. Also in MoP, the healing was raised to 4% up from 3%. Recuperate was removed in Legion and replaced with Crimson Vial ability. While the Vial is not a finishing move, it is nice for rogues to have a way to self-heal. Recuperate was only in the game for 3 expansions, making it the shortest finishing move that had a consistent name in the entire game. The next finishing move is Crimson Tempest. This ability acts as both an AoE attack and inflicts bleeding on all the targets. It was added in MoP and learned by rogues at level 83. In MoP, it had a range of 8 yards, but it was changed to 10 yards in Worlds of Draenor. But also in WoD, it was made to cost 35 energy to perform. The ability was added as a way to actually allow rogues to spend their combo points on an AoE ability, instead of just single target abilities or buffs. As before things like Crimson Tempest, rogues basically just used their combo points on all their buff abilities or on singular bosses if they were spamming fan and knives. The ability was then removed entirely in Legion, only to be brought back in BFA. When it was brought back in BFA, it was altered slightly and was now a level 100 tier 7 assassination talent. Shadowlands heavily nerfed this ability and soft-capped its damage to 8 enemies, like they did for a lot of AoE abilities. In Dragonflight, Crimson Tempest is a tier 5 talent in the assassination talent tree, and requires a minimum of 5 points and a level of 10 to be able to use it. Warlords of Draenor may be a controversial expansion, but one very cool thing it did was add the Death from Above finishing move. In WoD, this was a level 100 talent and stayed that way all until BFA, when it was turned into a PvP talent. This ability from WoD until BFA had an AoE attack, a buff to damage, and a cool animation where the player would fly up in the air and then fly back down and stab their opponent. However, BFA unfortunately removed the AoE aspect of the attack, dwindling down the number of AoE finishing attacks. The original ability was a range of 15 yards, cost 25 energy, and had a cooldown of 20 seconds. The newer PvP talent has the same range and cost, but has a longer cooldown of 30 seconds. Our next finishing move is Between the Eyes. Added in Legion, this was an outlaw-only finishing move which gave the rogue a critical strike bonus on their next target in addition to doing damage. The buff extended longer with the more combo points the rogue spent. In Legion and BFA, this ability would also stun the target and so replace Kidney Shot for the outlaw rogues. In Shadowlands, the ability saw 2 big changes. They gave Kidney Shot back to all rogues so they could remove the stun from this ability, and instead made it a buff that increased your chance to crit. In addition, its damage was changed to do extra damage on a crit. In Legion, this was changed to level 10, and in Shadowlands, it was changed to level 17, the same level at which it also is in Dragonflight. The Legion expansion saw the removal of the Combat Rogue specialization, and its replacement with the Outlaw Rogue specialization. With this change came a new finishing move for the Outlaw spec, and it was named Run Through. This ability was learned automatically at level 10, and would replace the Evisceration ability. In fact, the abilities are pretty much the same, and Run Through even uses the old spell ID of the original Evisceration from Vanilla to WoD. The difference is that Run Through had an increased range to it, and Run Through in Legion was described as a lunging finishing move. Run Through was renamed in BFA to Dispatch. This should not be confused with another old rogue non-finishing move which was also called Dispatch but was renamed to Blindside in BFA. In both Shadowlands and Dragonflight, Dispatch is now learned at level 22. The penultimate finishing move for this video is named Secret Technique. This subtlety spec ability was added in BFA as a tier 7 talent. Its current iteration in Dragonflight says, finish a move that creates shadow clones of yourself. You and your shadow clones each perform a piercing attack on all enemies near your target, dealing physical damage to the primary target and reduce damage to other targets. This ability is another rare AoE finishing move, of which so far this is only the second one in this video. The only change to Secret Technique that came in Shadowlands when it was capped at 6 targets. Based on the name Secret Technique and the words Shadow Clone, it is safe to assume this ability is referencing the character of Naruto from his titular manga and anime. In Dragonflight, this ability is a tier 4 talent and requires at least 9 points, meaning the player would be at least level 18 in order to use it. We now finally arrive at the last rogue finishing move that has been added to the game as of making of this video. This final talent is named Black Powder, and it's another subtlety AoE finishing move. Added in the Shadowlands expansion, this ability is a, quote, finishing move that launches explosive black powder at all nearby enemies, dealing physical damage. Unfortunately, this ability was also kept at 8 targets. In Shadowlands, Black Powder was learned at level 52. In Dragonflight, Black Powder is a tier 2 ability on the subtlety tree spec and costs 2 points, meaning the earliest a subtlety rogue can get this ability is level 4. Alright, and that does it for this video. This was a viewer requested topic, so be sure to leave your ideas and comments about future topics for future videos, and we just might make a video on that subject. Thanks for watching, and always remember that Ravenhold is guarded by rogues, so the mountain right behind it must be a sneak peek.